The Validate Row event of the XtraGrid allows you to enforce custom validation rules on your data. In this video, we'll work with the XtraGrid that contains two columns populated with time values. Due to the nature of the date, the value in the first column should always be less than the value in the second one. So we'll perform validation to ensure that the correct pattern is preserved. I'll start with a new WinForms application that has an XtraGrid dropped and docked to the form. I have already created 3 unbound columns using the grid's designer, 2 of which have a time edit in-place editor assigned to them. I switch to code view. In form1.cs, I add a small class to store my test data. For the purpose of this example, I'm going to use a simple list as my data source. In the form constructor, I create some test data and bind it to the grid. Notice that the start time is always less than the end time value. Next, I'm going to implement some code to perform the validation at runtime. The validation of a row will be performed when the data is about to be saved to the data source. For this reason, I'm going to handle the validate row event of the grid view. I switch to design mode. I select grid view and create a handler for the validate row event. First, I'm going to add reference to the devexpress.xtragrid.views.base and devexpress.xtragrid.columns namespaces. Back in the event handler, I add the following code. Here, I simply retrieve the values of the columns and compare them. If the value of start time is greater than or equal to end time, then the valid property of the row is set to false. Additionally, the error indicators are displayed with the following error messages. I run the application. In the first row, I set the start time to a value that is later than the end time. When I click out of the row, I am presented with an error message asking me if I want to correct the value. This is a built-in functionality of the grid, but it's not very informative. If the data wasn't as obvious as in this example, the user would never know why the data needs to be corrected, eventually leading to frustration. So let's hide this error dialog. I close the application and return to Visual Studio. I switch to Design View and create a handler for the grid view's invalid row exception event. This event is raised if the row fails validation or cannot be saved to the data source due to database restrictions. So I'll add the following code to suppress the error message generated by the in-place editor. I run the application again. I change the time value and I'm no longer presented with a modal error message. The error indicators are displayed next to the affected cells. When I hover over each error icon, I can see the error message reset in code describing why the values did not pass validation. Thanks for watching, and thank you for choosing DevExpress.